Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome back to Enigmatica to Expert. So, last episode, of course, we took a break from the tree for one episode just to build out a little bit of the village, the town itself, and get some buildings in place. Let me kill this zombie. But we took an episode break from the tree, and I said we were coming back for this episode, and we have definitely come back. I will say that there has been a few changes to my initial plan. We'll discuss those in a little bit. That's the reason what we built this episode is done, but you notice the floor out here is not done. That's because I've had a change of heart again for like the 7th time with this build, but it's something that's kind of evolving as I build it. So we're not going to do the outer floor here, but we are going to do the interior of the tree this episode. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into the speed build, and then I'll catch back up with you guys at the end, and we'll go over stuff, and we'll talk about some stuff. And then, of course, in the next episode, it will be World Tour and World Upload episode. So anyways, let's go ahead and get into a bit of speed building. Okay, so we're picking back up, of course, after the last speed build for the tree. And actually, this first couple bits, I decided to leave the footage in there so you guys weren't like, well, what happened? You know, everything changed. But I will say this first little bit, we end up just scrapping all of this. Now, once you get the world upload, if you dig through the tree, you will find this that we're actually building right here. You'll find it buried in there. But I decided that I didn't like the way it would shape up to be. Because originally I was just planning on running this up and having it kind of follow the shape that we have cut out there for the upper floor. But I decided that the angle was just kind of weird. It was way too open feeling. A whole lot more open feeling than what I really wanted. So of course, like many things within this first floor of the magic build, it went through an iteration of change. But I decided, like I said, to keep this bit of footage just so you could kind of see what I was doing, where I was going at first, and then what I ended up changing to. I will say that the amount of speed build footage, and right here I do try to add lights periodically so it isn't as dark as the last speed build, because I know the last one, it was a bit dark during most of it. Luckily, we do have that skylight up there, which keeps it kind of lit up in here. It does help a bit. But I will say the amount of speed build footage today is not. It's a bit less than what we had, in the past couple builds because they were so big. But it's not really representative very much of the amount of time that I spent on this thing. This thing took forever, it feels like. A lot of prep, a lot of planning, a lot of time spent in my test world. Testing different blocks to use for decoration. Now right here, of course, we're going to be doing oak leaves and the flowering oak leaves, just like the rest of the tree, just kind of keeping it very consistent throughout. Also, living wood, I don't even know how much living wood I've used, but it's definitely something that I'm glad we have completely automated, and automated fast. And it's been great because I'll go over there and I'll get a big batch of living wood, and then it just dumps just a ton of infused wood all at once, just pop, 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 and fills it up, and then it runs that out, and then the next time I go over there, or a couple times after, it'll fill back up. Now right here this is where I kind of start changing my mind, and I'm actually running these are just perfect cylinder shapes that I'm just setting up with the builder, and just kind of having these kind of come out kind of angle inwards here, because I decided that I wanted it to be a whole lot more closed in at the top than just a big open pit that we had going on there. So I'm running these cylinder shapes out. Now I will say pretty much all the living wood that I'm placing right here ends up getting removed, but this is just to give us a general shape. We don't want it to be too precise of a cylinder because it wouldn't be very realistic if it was too precise of a circle. So we do make it really, really rough once we come through, but that's just kind of to get us a good angle going, so you can kind of see kind of this shape coming together. It's almost like a big croquembouche or something that's kind of being built here. And now we're going to build out just a layer of living wood, just cover over the top of this, because of course, like we did before, we want our leaves, if you look through the leaves, you see living wood behind it and not just whatever block happens to be behind it. So we're just kind of filling this in and creating sort of a roof on this. And then we're going to run this block out. Now this may change. Of course, we're not really working on the second floor just yet. But we're just running that block around to give us a border, running living wood around the edges there. and that way we fill in all of our gaps. And then we're just going to run leaves followed by flowering oak leaves, just to kind of fill all this in and make a nice greenery that we can then come back through and cover with a dark glass or something. My plan right now is jungle Miramax glass, which we're going to be farming up and then doing kind of a pattern that runs around that area. And now we are back down into the tree. You can see the roof up above us there, and we're going to start actually running all of our living wood. This build, the thing that's been really difficult about this build is I'm basically placing a ton of living wood on living wood initially. So I have to be very, very careful not to lose what's the living wood that I actually want to keep, and what's the living wood that I want covered, and what's the living wood that's going to be covered by leaves. You know, there's a lot to kind of bear in mind because it's just brown everywhere whenever I start these builds. Especially this interior, because I have the walls, and I mean it's brown as far as I could see, whereas outside it wasn't. You know, I had that open space. I could kind of look outside and not be surrounded by just brown wood everywhere. But we're running these out and just kind of shaping these to somewhat follow the angle that our cylinders were ran, but not too precise. You know, we can kind of come out a block or two, we can go in a block or two, then we just cut away the cylinder as need be. But just to kind of have this be more of a kind of an enclosed feel to it instead of this just big open pit that's inside of a tree. Because I felt like that kind of missed the mark of what I really, really wanted with this. It does mean that I lose a lot of the space that originally I was going to be running structures up and having kind of all these different elevation platforms going on, but I actually think it worked out really, really well and has given me a lot of plans for kind of pushing this build a bit more. Because if you recall, during the last speed build I had mentioned maybe digging this out and having it so you can go down to the base of the tree, because remember this is like the top of the tree that we're actually working on. And I've since expanded on that idea, and we'll talk a little bit more about it at the end, but I will say that we don't get the floor outside of this room done. You know, I mentioned that was going to be one of the things that we were probably going to be working on in the speed build. I'll go ahead and tell you no. It's went through another iteration of change, and I've totally just revamped that whole idea of the floor and how we're going to lay it out, and that's going to be something that may sit there for a little bit longer, but we're going to get to it, I promise. It's just something that I just keep changing my mind on. And changing my plans on, because right now it was going to be a big open space, lots of greenery, and we were going to kind of run the same kind of where brick meets wild grass was my original idea, but I think I changed it to something that I think is going to be a whole lot better. It's just going to be a whole lot more work, but it will be fun to build that, I think, and get that all set up. So right now we're just kind of shaping up around this tree, just general shape up for kind of the rough look to just the bare wood, and then we're going to come back over, add some leaves. Leaves aren't going to go all the way to the ground, of course, because we want them to be more of a canopy. And then we're going to come back up to the roof and just finish kind of connecting this off and kind of getting all this kind of roughly shaped up, and then we'll add the leaves on top of that, and then all those little bits of wood that kind of go down vertically. We're gonna add a little bit to those, add some leaves kind of covering, and just kind of add our other pass of leaves that we make, just to kind of get that natural look going, because we don't want just these perfectly straight bits of living wood that just connect up to the ceiling and, you know, they're just no leaves whatsoever. So now we're going to start adding the leaves, breaking it up with the living wood, and that's when the build kind of starts taking shape and kind of starts looking like something instead of just a big brown log that we're inside of. And then of course we still have to add a lot of the ceiling detail, just like we did outside, which this room is very, very alive, I think, by the time it's done. I absolutely love this room. It's been nice, like, after I finished it, to be able to go back in that room and just, like, I don't know, it's kind of relaxing. Just, you know, I like the nature builds a lot usually, and I always have a lot of fun with them. And this build, I've enjoyed doing the, you know, kind of the Victorian style architecture and stuff like that we've been doing, but it's been nice to kind of break away from that and just do a really nature build with this tree, even though it has been a lot of work, like a ton of work, and we had to take like a 1 episode break from it because it was just so much Just so much work. The outside of the tree was just massive amount of time, and then the inside has been just as much, if not more, though less actual build time, more planning and playing with blocks and stuff like that. So you can see now there's a little bit more going on. It's not just those straight bits of living wood, and we have more leaves kind of popping out, more flowering oak leaves. And now we can start the fun part, because I had mentioned I wanted platforms coming off this. And originally I had played around with like, well, what if they were like wooden platforms? We do build a wooden one, so you can kind of see an example here in a little bit, but it's a little bit different than what I had. It's not hanging off the edge there, but I decided that we were going to go with mushrooms. But we have mushrooms that kind of come off, you know, on the outside, and so I decided to run those and use those as our platforms, like the larger ones here that have kind of grown up inside this tree, and kind of use that as our platforms that we're going to be, you know, setting up just little setups. It's not for big setups, of course, but we could always set up a spreader and a little managing system, or we could set up, you know, just a little sitting area, or we could set up, you know, like a little library area, something like that. So I'll kind of, as time goes on, we'll figure out what we want to use all these for and just set them up for those purposes. And now we're going to start running ropes and rope ladders. I will say that I changed the rope. I was using that rope, but then I changed it to the Quark rope coils. They don't look so much like rope, but they do look like a vine, more like a vine that's just kind of hanging there. A little bit thicker than I would like, but I still like it more than the ropes there. And just kind of giving this some actual, so that you could actually move around this room if you don't have flight. But of course, we'll be using flight for that. And now we're going to start building our kind of floating platform that sits above this room, almost like a chandelier, that just sits above this room and kind of acts as another, kind of like a roof, to keep from just that big hole looking down from the upper floor. So if you're up there, you look down, you see this platform, but you can't really see underneath it. You can't see the fountain and everything that's going on underneath this platform. And if you're down there looking up, you can't see that second floor. And just kind of have this hanging here. And I had this fun idea, and I absolutely love the way it turned out, of just running these ropes, these hemp ropes, all over this room, as you can see. Just all over this room. And I love the way it turned out. It's something I have never done before. But oh my gosh, like I love it. I love it. I had so much fun with it. And you can also see I did set up some luminizers. We'll talk briefly about how to set those up if you have, you know, if you've never set one up. They're super simple to set up. But I just set up a little luminizer system so that we can travel between floors and between the platform and the ground, and just kind of, once again, so if you don't have flight, you can still move around this room. Plus, luminizers look absolutely beautiful. You can see all the little wisps of like electricity, like that magic energy kind of running off of those. Now here is the worst idea I've ever had. I ran the ropes and then I run the vines. Bad idea, because if the vines block the ropes, they break the ropes. So I ran through so much hemp coil because I built all this, and then I came back and I was like, where'd all my ropes go? And my vines had broken them and they despawned. So if you're doing this, make sure and run your vines first. It just makes your life a whole lot easier, because they will snap those ropes off and they'll just drop to the ground. Also, just as a heads up, because I don't think that I got it into the speed build, I think it was something that I did after. It's just kind of a tweak that I did to this room. But I did change the color of the fog coming up off of our fountain. I changed it from the purple to a green, and actually added another pylon and a couple more spreaders kind of spewing that green downwards, to kind of create like this, almost like it's like the heart of this room, or the heart of this tree, or, you know, maybe a wellspring of magic energy or something that's kind of coming up off of that. So just bear that in mind. I'll point it out a little bit more at the end. And now we're going to run our kind of our leaves and stuff just a little bit lower in places, just to add, so it's not just this big brown section of walls. Just kind of sprucing it up with just a little bit more greenery in places where these leaves have had the ability to kind of just grow down, almost like a moss, kind of just growing down along the wall. And you can see the vines at this point, I did let them fully grow, and you can also see the ropes have changed to those Quark rope coils, so they look more like vines than, you know, kind of like, I imagine them being like the Tarzan vines. They're a little bit thicker than I would like, but that's just kind of what they remind me of, is like big Tarzan vines. And you can climb them, so that's good too. I thought the other ropes were just too clean. You know, I would rather it be like that width, but be that brown and kind of rough texture. That would be perfect, but it's whatever. I tried to pick the better of the two, I thought, for the build, but I don't know. You'll have to let me know if you like the other ropes more or this one. So at this point, I'm pretty much just going around. I'm zipping around. Of course, in these interior builds, it's kind of hard to get everything on camera, but I'm kind of just zipping around, and I'm adding glimmering living wood and mossy living wood to kind of spruce things up and kind of put some variation to just the living wood that kind of covers everything. And I also did it at the upper layers too a little bit. So we do have little bits of that glimmering and stuff that kind of pokes out. And now we're going to start running the paths. Now originally I started with paths. By the way, you don't have to change your vivid grass to grass. I started off doing that, and then I was like, oh yeah, vivid grass can be done as paths. Now I will say at this point, kind of moving forward, I do go back and I cut a lot of things because like I basically thin things out because I had way more dirt than I really needed. Generally I run things and then I'll go back through and I'll thin things because I'll end up putting too much in places, and this is a perfect example of that. I put way too much dirt, so it almost looks like it was dying inside this tree, so I cut a lot of that dirt out. We still have a bit of dirt, kind of like where places maybe where leaves have piled up and you know the grass there has died, or it's just been walked on a lot. I know at the base of those ladders I put dirt because you know it would be stepped on and moved around on a lot, so I did put some dirt there and just kind of thin this out a bit. And then we're going to start adding, I'm running around at this point just adding some living wood around the base of the tree so it's coming out, you know, not just going vertically down into the grass and there not being any that sticks out. So I'm just adding a little bit of living wood and then going back through once again and doing glimmering living wood and mossy living wood. I'm just doing that with the exchanger, of course. It just makes it a little bit easier for us. And then we're going to go through and we're going to add some stones, which once again I go through and I thin these out because it felt like a rock quarry after I got done the first time, so you can see me thinning just a little bit there. Just kind of cutting back a little bit of those. I still want a bit of stones. I think they just add a lot of texture to the ground, but not quite as many as I had at first. So, and then we're going to go through and we're just going to add some greenery. We're going to start off with grass, then we're going to add flowers, just kind of making this place look nice and naturey. And then I go through with the, I believe it's quark oak leaf carpet. I go through because it kind of makes this like a leaf feel. And originally I started out really thick. Now if you've ever been in the woods like in fall or spring, you know that like leaves are everywhere. There is no ground because leaves are just everywhere. But I felt like for the build, that was a little bit too much. So I do go back and I thin that. And then I also went back and thinned it a second time because I still felt like it was too much. There was just way, with a lot of that carpet and a lot of that dirt and stuff, there was just way too much going on the floor. So I did thin it out a bit. I mean, it's still busy for sure, but it's naturey. It's meant to be kind of a naturey feel, which tends to be very busy. Because in my opinion, if you have a nature build and you don't have just a lot of just wild grass and leaves and things like that, it just looks so barren. You know, it looks like it wants to be a desert, but it had to be a forest. You know. So we add a lot of greenery here. I'm going with just basically vanilla Minecraft flowers and botania tall flowers because they were cheap, easy. I had a lot of them and they look fine. I didn't have to go too crazy with it. So. And at this point we are adding the last finishing touch, and that is fireflies and cicadas from the Twilight Forest, just to add atmosphere, add sound and stuff like that. Okay, so that's what we're up to at the moment. We're going to step inside here with the HUD off. But before we go in, this outer area, as you recall, I did mention originally my plan was to build this out this episode, which the interior of the tree took me a while, a lot longer than the speed build itself, because a lot of prep and a lot of planning and thinking had to go into that. It took a bit of time, but this outer floor, the only reason that we did not do it is because if you recall the last time we worked on the tree, I mentioned I had an idea to have it go down, you know, and actually be able to go down there. And I really started kind of toying around with the idea in my head a bit, and I like that idea because I feel like this tree would be a whole lot more impressive if you could see more of it, you know, especially first walking in. And so my plan is, once we start that, actually opening up a lot of the floor and totally getting rid of the stone and these like planters, or what was a long time ago going to be planters. This area has went through so many iterations of change in my head, and I think we've actually spent a couple speed builds working out here some, and I keep changing my ideas and changing my mind on things. But I'm thinking at the moment not doing the exterior here just yet, and instead having this be walkways that come out and cross, and then have cutaways in places. Still have like botania stuff out here so we can do some of our botania crafting, maybe set up a Gaia Guardian. Actually, I'm thinking Gaia Guardian under the ground, a little area for that. But have some little areas for various botania crafts or whatever that we may need. But then have it cut away so you can actually look down deep and see down into, you know, the rest of the tree. And that way it's not like you just go down there, but it's visible as you first come into this tree. I think it would be really, really cool. Of course, that's going to be a massive undertaking and not something we're going to start right now. So I might just leave this room alone and quit messing with it until I'm entirely sure exactly how we're going to set things up. And then we'll start digging out that underground. But we'll be able to do it with a builder, so it should be pretty quick, I think, because we don't really have anything under the floor here. It's all just pretty much above the ground, except for our Endoflame setup that's in here, and that's minor and easy to work around. But if we head on inside, and I actually cleaned out my backpacks and filled them back up with junk, as you can see. But if we head on inside, I went for, of course, with this being a very naturey build, I went for a lot of greenery. I didn't go super crazy with grass because I didn't want it to feel too overgrown, but I did want it to feel you know, like there was a bit of greenery and stuff growing here. And then I used the coarse loamy dirt instead of going with paths or something like that. You know, path like vanilla paths, not these path blocks. And then of course it's the vivid grass. Get the vivid grass throughout this. And then I messed with lighting for a while, actually for like 3 or 4 hours in my test world, and decided I just wanted to go with something simple, not super ornate, and something that used these floating flowers, but didn't have them too crazy because we have a lot going on up in the upper sections here. So I just wanted them just kind of floating here off the side to add a little bit of movement on the ground level and give us that light. So, and then of course these are all done up with mossy living wood. I may add some vines or stuff in here. I don't know. I might. We'll see. This is kind of, I tend to build things and then add and do a bit as time goes on. So I wanted something that felt really, really just crazy naturey, crazy elf, like wood elf type feel to it. And I actually am pretty happy with the way this turned out. You know, I had mentioned I wanted like little platforms off on the side here that we could access. And I think mushrooms. I think mushrooms work out perfectly for that. And some of these aren't really like super practical. Of course, we can fly. But like climbing these are rope coils from Quark. And they kind of look like they would be like some kind of weird jungly vine. It's kind of awkward to climb them and get over, you know, into some of these places. But they're more just theoretical travel. I mean, they are all usable. I have tested them all. But they're all more just theoretical travel between the platforms. And then we'll have stuff on these, like runic altars, and actually you'll notice I have an armor stand in here. We're probably going to set some armor stands up on these, kind of in a decorating phase. I'd crafted these up, and I was like, I'm going to use these, and I was like, well, I'm not sure just yet. But we do have some there. And just do some little like decorating and some practical things. You know, we'll have maybe some spreader setups that feed somewhere around in this room, and just different little things like that. I actually have to run off of that one to land here, but so I did go ahead and set up that. And I did spend about 4 hours at one point playing around with adding heals and elevation changes, some like a little bit in here. I tried using one thing that does work with vivid grass is the framed blocks. I noticed that in my test world. Architecture Craft does not work for making slabs because it puts them in a weird angle, like the texture. But frame slabs do work. I played around with adding texture changes, but it just felt weird walking through here, and I decided that originally I was going to have like a little hilly area in here and some other stuff, but it felt weird since we have so many entrances into this place. Because we can enter from every single direction except for here. It felt weird trying to stick anything big like that in here. And of course I ended up making it a lot smaller on the inside than I had originally planned. I made this a bit thicker, and we also brought this out a bit. If you recall, at the beginning of the speed build, it was actually originally going to be a lot farther back. But I decided that I liked this type shape a lot more than going with it being more open and then just suddenly kind of coming in at the end. I think I like this a bit more. The fountain, still massive, takes up most of the room here, but this is going to be, I think, a big part of what we build underground. This like life water and this life tree here, kind of like a whole Yggdrasil type idea. And I guess theoretically, this would be like the top of the tree, where the branches have started coming out, and there's that part, kind of the crest of the tree, I guess, if you will, where all the branches kind of come out. I guess theoretically that would be what this is. It's not really shaped to be exactly like that, but it's more just to be a practical build that we can use. And then, let's see, most of the flowers are just a mix of vanilla flowers and just tall flowers. They were easy to do, and they add a bit of color into this area. Over here we have, these are just rope ladders from open blocks. They kind of look like rails, but there's not really a better ladder that can hang like that. I think some of these other ones can, but they can't hang as well. I might... Hold up, let me try this. I thought that was a trapdoor this whole time. They were kind of blocky, but yeah, you can climb these. That's cool. Be like really cool lattice. I might play around with it. I don't know, because they are a little bit blocky. But I don't know. I guess so is the rope ladder. I don't know. I might play around with it. Let me know what you guys think. I'll set one up as an example, and then we'll just kind of see. Because it's one of those things that'll probably just have to sit here and then me decide on it. We'll make a decision on it over time. But it would be like that. See, I feel like it's a little bit on the blocky side. It would work really, really well for like a trellis or something. But I do think I like the rope ladders a lot more, so we're just going to tear this down. But let me know what you guys think, but I do think the rope ladders are going to look a little bit better because they're stick thin. They're stick thin, but I don't know. I think they look okay. And then you'll notice a lot of like cicadas and fireflies. I spent a little while in the Twilight Forest, not all that long. It doesn't take very long to farm these things. You just hit them and they fall off. I spent a little bit of time farming those up. And then I did set up Luminizers, which if you've never set these up before, let's do just a really quick tutorial on these. So yeah, I've got these. So you can set up a luminizer and then set up another luminizer. Right click this luminizer, right click that one, and do that. And then if you right click this luminizer, it transports you. And then shift right, left click with your wand to break those off. That's the basics of luminizers. There are some more advanced luminizers. We'll talk more about those, I'm sure, at a later point. But I tend to like going with these, just basic luminizers and running 2 lines. The reason being, you get more particles and they look really, really fancy. Kind of like wisping around up here. So I just went with 2 lines on each of these. That way we kind of have more movement going on. And of course this, I ended up setting up more mana spreaders. And having these kind of, I don't know, I kind of like the way that looks. And it's like this mystical heart of the tree kind of thing. Treated wood scaffolding. And then, let's see, if we click, I'll show you these luminizer lines. If you click here, it's going to take us up. into the tree. And then right now it just kind of dumps us off right here. That's because I haven't really set up a landing spot for that luminizer. And then if we click on this one, it carries us down. Oh, I have to move that one. I don't think I tested it after I set up those. But I will have to move that. It doesn't matter that much, but we do kind of clip right there, just slightly. So if I bring this one out to the right just slightly, we can solve that issue. And then these over here, if we click this takes us up to this little platform. Then we click this one and it takes us down off the platform, back to this spot. So this little platform, I went kind of crazy with the ropes because I don't know, I can't really place a specific place that I've seen it off the top of my head for some reason, but I know a lot of like the crazy like elven type stuff. I mean, not like Lord of the Rings or something like that, but something with wood elves, I don't know. I can't think of a good example, but they have like, you know, just ropes off in all kinds of directions. Kind of, I mean, this could be used kind of maybe as travel or also for stabilizing this, because it's just holding this big floating platform up with all these ropes and kind of keeping it stable. So I decided I was going to go crazy with the ropes, and I love the way it turned out. It's just kind of, I don't know, it's something I've never done before, and I just had a lot of fun with it. I hope you guys like it. It was a nightmare running this because these vines kept breaking my ropes. Luckily, hemp rope, super cheap, but I did have to go through a lot of it because my vines kept growing, and I had to change up where my vines were growing and all that, while not blocking my ropes, and also not blocking where they come in at, because it'll break those off. And then this platform, of course, is just for terrestrial agglomeration at the moment. That's not to say, I'm sure we'll do like an automated terrestrial agglomeration setup at some point. There is terrasteel seeds also, so I don't know. We'll see. This pack, we don't really care that much. We'll just automate it in multiple ways. I don't care. But we have a few mana pools. Of course, I moved the mana from that excess that was over there with the mana tablet up to here, and moved our peace candle down to here to get all that clutter out of our way up there, and added us a forestry work table in case we need it. Because at first I was like, well, maybe it'll be useful, and then I was like, oh yeah, this is terrestrial agglomeration. You don't need to craft anything for that, but it's up here in case we need it. I needed a table, and a lot of the tables wouldn't support the peace candle. Like if I did one with architecture craft, it wouldn't hold the peace candle, so I battled with that for a little while trying to figure out what to put there. And then up here, this part's probably going to get changed up a little bit. We'll see. But my idea is we're going to run glass over this and then do kind of a design in the glass. And the glass that the only reason I have not ran it at the moment is because the glass that I have in mind, I do not have, and that is the Mirmax resin glass. So we're going to have to go hunting for some Mirmax, some jungle Mirmax before long. But yeah, and originally this was going to be glass, and I decided to change my mind because this actually runs all the way up through to that next floor, and I decided we're going to run supports up on each of these, and then we're going to have these supports kind of curve in right here, so it's going to be, you know, like 4 sets kind of curving in and meeting there in the middle, up underneath this, kind of supporting the upper layer, kind of where this temple and stuff is, or this altar, I mean. So, but yeah, that's kind of where we're at. As far as speed build footage, we didn't have as much as, you know, a couple of the other past ones, but we were in a lot more contained quarters, so it is a little bit slower, so it's not too fast. And in addition, we actually got a lot done. I don't know, I'm super happy with this build. I like it. My girlfriend said she liked it, she approved, and my son said he approved as well. So hopefully you guys like it. And it's like the one place within the city build that, or this, you know, yeah, the city build that I got to go really, really crazy. I love building nature-y builds, as you guys know, and I got to go really, really crazy with this build, and it was a nightmare, but it was so much fun. Like, this thing took forever to build out. And then I decided we're going to add a whole nother underground section for it. So it's great fun. But down the road, because we've got enough build projects on that we're working on. So, but anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the build. I think we're going to wrap it up here. Next episode, of course, is the long-awaited world upload. So we are going to be touring the base, and then, of course, the world upload will be alongside that. I know I've had a lot of questions about it. A lot of people looking forward to the world upload this time around, even more so, I think, than the last time, because we did get some really big stuff built. Not as much as I'd hoped, but I can only do so much in 25 episodes. And yeah, we got quite a bit done. And also, after the world upload, I will say probably the next projects that we're going to be working on is we are going to be working on some stuff related to storage, automation, like automatic sorting type stuff, and we're also going to be setting up, start working on a big ore processing area. So we're going to get to build our first like plant, and we're also probably going to work a little bit over here as well, and then at some point come back over to the city, add some more, maybe finish the road work and detail work that's over here, adding kind of just more clutter and more just over, like a little bit of like damage to the roads and things, dirt, stuff like that. We still have to add over here. So that's something to look forward to as well. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I hope you guys enjoyed the build, not just this episode, but the tree in general. And it was so much time went into this. You guys have no idea. So much time. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already. Stay updated with when new videos come out, and I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care. Stay safe. I'll see you guys then.